Hello and welcome back to another, I almost said it again, a great podcast, great YouTube video on this information. And I don't think they're really thinking that. But, this information may be helpful to you because it's actually put in a way that you can actually truly understand it, which is like the biggest issue, right? Isn't it like the biggest issue with some of this stuff? With some of this stuff that you have to learn, isn't that really the biggest issue? You can't really find somebody that will take their time and patience with you to actually discuss this stuff with you. And that's the reason why a lot of people learning this particular material, especially the stuff we're going to talk about today, it's the reason why people have problems learning it. It's because they don't have an instructor who, one, knows the information, and two, is patient with them. Now, how do you find that person? Well, you have to shop around for it. Luckily, you're at the right spot because, fake it till you make it. I guess that's the way I look at it. Anyway, so I'm looking at some regs here. That's it's part 3 of our reg discussion. So if you watch the other 2 videos, this is chiming in right in with that. We're actually covering the subpart B of the regs, part 61 today, and we're only going to cover a couple of these in here because bottom line is there only a couple apply to you. So let's look at these and see which ones do apply to you. Well, let's look at this. Of course, the applicability is, all of them have the applicabilities, but let's look at this particular one, 6163, additional aircraft ratings other than ratings at the airline transport pilot certification level. So let's look at 6163. What is it? What does it deal with? And why would you ever use this? Well, 6163 deals with additional categories and additional class ratings onto a pilot certificate, or if you have a type rating, an additional type rating onto your pilot certificate. So what does this mean? Well, if you look at take your pilot certificate out right now, and I want you to look at it. If you have to, pause this video until you find it. But when you take out the back of that, when you look at that, your back of your pilot certificate, it gives you whatever category of aircraft that you are looking at, that you have, whatever class of aircraft that you have, and then any type ratings that you have. So CAT class type. CAT class type. Say it with me. CAT class type. Yeah. So you may even remember some questions from your private pilot rating where it talked about, in regards to the certification of airmen, what would be a category of aircraft? And of course, that answer would be airplane, rotorcraft, weight shift, powered parachute, yada, yada, yada. Okay. And then you have, of course, that would be your additional aircraft category. So what is an example of this? Well, that would be, you have someone coming to you who is a commercial rotorcraft, and they want to get a private pilot, multi-engine airplane, or a private pilot single engine airplane. So they're going cross categories. So going from rotorcraft to airplane, going from powered parachute to airplane, going from airship to airplane, something like that. So that's cross category. And then we have an additional class rating, and there's really only one that has a class, which is that I know of. If anybody wants to prove me wrong on this, is perfectly okay. I'm not in a debate session here. Is your airplane, where you have multi-engine and single engine. Although there's multi-engine, single-engine helicopters, I don't think they differentiate between class. I'll have to do some research on that, but I'm pretty sure I'm correct about that. I don't fly helicopters, and I don't know anything about helicopters. I'm not a CFI on helicopters, so of course that information is completely out of my mind, and I don't care about it. So if I want to do an additional category, aircraft category, which means that probably none of you have an additional aircraft category that's listening to this. You're probably a 250-hour commercial pilot trying to get your CFI rating, so the additional aircraft category you don't have. But on your exam with the examiners, one of the questions they're going to ask is, the examiner may say a question like this. A rotorcraft private pilot comes into the school, and he wants to get his private pilot airplane, either a multi or a single engine, depending on whatever type of CFI you're going to be. What would you need to do with this guy or girl in order to get them their private pilot multi-single add-on category? Well, you would simply just come here. You'd go to 6163 Bravo, which is dealing with categories, and you would follow along in the directions. So let's see what it asks for on the category. It says, 1, must complete the training and have the applicable aeronautical experience. This means that you can't take any shortcuts. It means that if a person is going to do the private pilot, then you got to go to the 61 100s, like 61 103 through 113. If they're going to do commercial, then you got to go to the 120s. So 61 123 through 61 133. Those particular regs deal specifically with the applicable aeronautical experience for the pilot at that level, like private level or commercial level. Must complete the training and have the applicable aeronautical experience. Applicable aeronautical experience is flight time. Okay. And then 2, must have a logbook or training record and endorsement from an authorized instructor attesting that the person was found competent in the appropriate aeronautical knowledge areas. So aeronautical knowledge, that would be your 61 105 or 61 125. We haven't talked about those yet, but no big deal. We're going to. We've got a couple of more videos before we can actually get into that, but you can turn ahead in the regs and see. I mean, you're not. Let's do that. Let's scroll over here so you can see what I'm talking about. So I go to the 100s. See what I'm talking about when I say the 100s and then the 120s, kind of. So see how I'm saying that? Yeah. So I look over at the private pilot, and what does 61 105 say? Aeronautical knowledge. That's right. It says aeronautical knowledge, and there you go, aeronautical knowledge right over here. So that means that you must have a training record where you've gone over these items in 61 105. Let's see what's in 61 105. Look at all that. Look at all that crap that you have to learn. So, yeah, look at all that junk. It doesn't matter which one it is. Any private pilot certificate's got to know all that stuff. That's the reason why 61 105 is so short. See how short it is? Just a couple of sentences long there. Aeronautical knowledge areas, FARs, NTSB, accident reporting, all that other good stuff there that you have to learn to be a private pilot. Now, boy, that's pretty loud when I do like that, and I'm going to stop doing that in future videos. And then it says you must pass the practical test. Duh. Hopefully they'd pass a practical test if they're going to get an additional category. And then 4, listen to this one. This one is kind of neat. Listen to this. Need not take an additional knowledge test. Yeah, no written for an additional category. But here's the caveat. Provided that the applicant holds an airplane, rotorcraft, powered lift, weight shift aircraft, powered parachute, or airship rating at the pilot certificate level. Hey, did you see this thing say glider? No, you did not. So if you have a private pilot glider, do you have to take a knowledge test? Yes, because glider is not in there. You tracking? You following what I'm saying? Yeah. So need not take an additional knowledge test provided that the applicant holds an airplane, rotorcraft, powered lift, weight shift, powered parachute airship at that pilot certificate level. So you don't need to take an additional knowledge test, but if they're going from glider to airplane, then yes, you do. Or from glider to rotorcraft, yes, you do. Okay. So in essence here, when we start talking about the additional aircraft ratings for additional aircraft category, there's a couple of things you want to know. That's the aeronautical experience. You want to know the aeronautical knowledge areas that they must discuss, and that they don't need to take a knowledge test. They must pass the practical test. And if they do all that stuff, they'll have an additional category. One of the biggest things about this particular 6163 Bravo, which is additional category, is the required flight time. This is something that is so incredibly frustrating because examiners are so freaking they're either stupid, which I don't think they are, because most examiners are pretty. Well, they're not pretty. Anybody ever seen a pretty examiner? I never have. I mean, but a female maybe, but not a male. I don't know. Feel free to comment down below or even post pictures if you know a pretty examiner. I'd probably say handsome. But anyway, this is most examiners that ask this question. What is the question I'm trying to get at? The question is, what is the minimum flight time needed in an airplane for this person to qualify for this additional aircraft category? And it's 30 hours, which is 20 hours of dual and then 10 hours of solo time. But I've heard examiners say 22 hours. And I don't know why they would say that. That's completely stupid. When we go into the flight time for airplane private pilot, I'll show you how they got the 22, but they add some threes together, 3, 3, 3, 3. So 3 hours a night, 3 hours of IFR, 3 hours of cross country, and 3 hours in preceding 2 calendar months, preceding the month of the test in preparation for the practical test. And some of those can overlap, so that's not 3, 6, 9, 12 as you would possibly think, plus the 10 hours of solo. That's how they get 22. It's completely wrong. If anybody ever has an examiner that actually asks them that question and they swear up and down it's 22, please post it in the comments below and give me the examiner's name. I'll call the examiner and talk to them and tell them that they're wrong. I don't care. I've got an ATP multi-engine, single engine. What are they going to do? I don't have any more check rides to take. I don't care. So I'll call them up. I'll be the bad dog. I'll be the guard dog. You just tell me who it is. All right, so that's 6163 Bravo. But some of you have actually done this one, which is an additional class. So for the airplane, this is like going from single engine to multi-engine or vice versa. And it says that a person who applies for an additional class on a pilot certificate must have a logbook or training record endorsement from an authorized instructor attesting that the person was found competent in the appropriate aeronautical knowledge. So this is actually saying that if you want to train somebody for this, you better have a training record of the knowledge areas that you went over. It's so incredibly common doing a practical exam, looking over someone's logbook, and they don't have any ground logged. And I'm like, where's your ground? And they're like, well, I did a video. Okay, well, where's your graduation certificate? And they just like a deer in a headlight look. I'm like, yeah, you cannot go to a practical test without some ground school being logged in your logbook. It clearly states it right here that you have to have that aeronautical knowledge in order to do it, and must have a logbook or training record endorsement from an authorized instructor attesting that the person was found competent. So if you don't have that, your instructor's dropping the ball, and they should be drawn and quartered and their head put on a spike in front of the FSDO. Now, so after you've done this, then it says must pass a practical test. Another duh moment. Thank you, FAA, for telling us that they must pass the practical test to get an additional pilot rating. And then number 3, listen to this one. Need not meet the specified training time requirements prescribed by this part that apply to the pilot certificate for the aircraft class rating SALT. And this is a very interesting one. A very, very interesting one. Because this basically says that you don't have to meet the training time requirement. You don't have to have that 30 hours. So what do you need? Well, you know what some people say? Well, you don't need any. Well, wrong. You can't go for this check ride with no flight times in the multi or no flight times in a single. That's completely absurd and stupid. So don't ever say that. You can't go before a check ride without having any training in an airplane. So that doesn't make any sense. So what is the minimum? There is no minimum, but it can't be 0. You got to have something, because it says that the person must have been found, let's see here, what does it say? That the person received the specified training time requirements and possesses the appropriate aeronautical experience. No, I'm sorry, that was for the last part here. Let me go back up. I do apologize. Need not meet the specified training time requirements prescribed by this part that apply to the pilot certificate for the aircraft class rating SALT unless the person holds a lighter than air with a balloon class rating and seeking an airship class. That doesn't apply to us. But here it just says need not meet the specified training time requirements, which is the training time requirements are listed in 61.109. How do I know that? Well, if I come over to this screen and I go to 61.109, well, there it is, aeronautical experience. I'm going to show you a really, really cool way. Come back if you look at the next video where I cover subpart E. I'm going to show you a really cool way to memorize all this stuff here. And it's really going to help you. So be looking forward to that video as I pump these things out. Try to on a daily basis. I'm trying to do 2 a day until I get all the regulations done, because it seems like everybody sucks at the regulations. The reason for it is because who can read all this crap? It's too much crap. It's not in any particular order. You just got to search around for it. It's crazy. All right. So let's also now look at Look at this. Number 4, need not take an additional knowledge test, provided that the applicant holds a airplane rotorcraft. So again, with the glider thing is also on that. So no knowledge test taken that you have to take for an additional category or additional class. No knowledge test need be taken. Let's go back up to this because I feel that some of you are going really lost when it comes to this training time requirements for an additional class. Let me go over that one more time. If you have to find someone competent in an area, can you do that with 0 hours? You can't. You cannot do that. You cannot find someone competent or prepared for the practical test, which is your 6139 A6 double I. I is that you've received the training within the preceding 2 calendar months, and double I is that they're prepared for the practical test. How are they prepared for the practical test if they've never flown the freaking airplane? So they can't be 0. Don't say 0. Don't say there is none. Just say you got to do whatever you got to do to find them proficient. And however many hours that is. What if you're dealing with a total rock and it takes 18 hours? Well, it takes 18 hours. Or what if it takes 35 hours? Well, it takes 35 hours. And what if they're meeting standards in 5 hours? Well, dadgum, that's a pretty daggum good pilot. So there you go. So this is an additional category, an additional class. If there's any questions, of course, don't hesitate to post those in the comments too, because I will get back with you. I will answer these questions here because this, like I said, this reg stuff is kind of weird. Additional aircraft type, you don't have to worry about that right now. You don't even have a type. Most of you don't even have a type rating to do an additional aircraft type to begin with. So we don't do that. And let's see here. We don't care about this stuff down here. None of this stuff. Don't worry about this. Multi-engine airplane with a single pilot station. Whew, man, I don't even know what that is. A multi-engine airplane with a single pilot station. That's somebody post that in the comments, whatever that is. Single engine airplane with a single pilot station. Of course, we do know many of those, but again, we're not looking at something that is that we're really worried about, because if we're doing this stuff right here, we're going to have to really go through some big hurdles with the FSDO. Okay. So you can't, it's be hard to do the practical test in the single seat version of the airplane. So anyway, then you got to find an examiner who would actually do that. And that's very rare. We don't have to worry about experimental aircraft because we're not doing that. And that covers 6163. So pretty easy. 6164, did I say pretty easy? What a moron. Sorry. 61.64, use of a flight simulator or flight training device. So what are we talking about here? Well, it says, if an applicant for a certificate of rating uses a flight sim or flight training device for training on any portion of the practical test, the flight sim and flight training device must blah, blah, blah. So if you are going to be using a flight simulator or a flight training device for any portion of the practical test, come to 6164 and read it. Most of you are not going to read it. Let's not read it. Most of you are not going to use a flight sim or flight training device on your check ride. If that happens, just come back here and do this. You don't usually do this unless you're doing like a check ride in a sim for like a type rating, or you're doing some 121, 135 stuff, or this 142, which is a flight school that uses simulators. Not has a simulator, like does the training in a sim. This is like a flight safety and SimCom and CAE and people like that. Okay? And so 6164 only deals with that. So let's go on down. You see there's a lot of junk that deals with that because they got to go over like helicopters and a bunch of other crap. 6165, when my video series come out for the instrument, for the double I, then I'll come back and visit this. I'm not going to talk about this now because this only deals with initial, multi, or single. Doesn't deal with instrument rating requirements. So we're going to bypass 6165. We're going to come right to the next one, 6166. Enhanced Flight Vision System. No, we're not going to discuss this. We don't use that and we don't care about it. So let's scroll on down. You see that's a lot of crap in that one. 6167, Category 2. No thank you. Let's move on down. And we get to 6168, Category 3. Thank you very much for offering. We don't need it. And then we go to the next one, 6169, giggity. Glider and unpowered ultralight vehicle towing. So this is this is something that as a private pilot you can do. There's a couple of issues with this reg. There's not any letters of interpretation on that I can find on the FAA's website, but let's look down through it and let's see let's talk about it, and then we'll talk about the little thing that I see in here, in which the way I interpret it, I'm reading one thing, but you may read it and get a total different interpretation. Again, if you have somebody that you see this, post it in the comments, and we'll all share with it. So it says no person may act as PIC for towing a glider or unpowered ultralight vehicle unless that person holds a private, commercial, or ATP. So you probably all have private and commercials, and that's great. So that means you qualify. Number 2 says you have to log at least 100 hours of pick time in the aircraft category, class, and type, if required, that the pilot is using to tow a glider. And then 3, has a logbook endorsement from an authorized instructor who certifies that the person has received ground and flight training in gliders or unpowered ultralight vehicles and is proficient and blah, blah, blah. Has a logbook endorsement from an authorized instructor who certifies that the person has received ground and flight training in gliders. So is this saying that even if I don't have a glider rating, that in order for me to tow a glider, I have to have flight training in gliders? Well, that's what I'm reading. I've never found anybody to answer that question. But then again, I've never found anybody that argue with it either. So I'd simply just say, here's the rule. That's what it is. Nobody's arguing with it, but it is kind of weird. I think what the most common thing in a class when I'm talking to people about this, most people say, in gliders? And I go, what does it say? It says in gliders. And I go, well, it must be in gliders. So I'm thinking that it means in gliders is what I think it means. So we'll just do in gliders because that's what it says. The techniques and procedures essential for safe towing of gliders or unpowered ultralight vehicles, including airspeed limitations, emergency procedures, signals used, maximum angles of bank, and blibbity blobbity blah. And then how do you stay current as a person towing? Nobody's going to ask you these questions. But this is a 6169. If I was to say to you, as a pilot, what things can you do? And if you say tow a glider, then I'll say, as examiner, what do I need to do to be able to tow a glider? And you would say, well, according to 6169, Todd, I would need to do blah, 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 because you always start off with the reg because it makes you sound like a real smart person. So even if you don't know the information, but you know the reg, if you can sound off that reg to an examiner, they're like, yep, you know exactly where to go to find it. And you're not just like going to open up a book and be turning page to page. Or those people that have the iPads and they're looking up information and they're swiping with their finger and I'm patiently waiting for the answer. Ugh, I can't stand those people. I don't hate those people, but I really, really strongly dislike them. Let's talk about 6171. We really don't care for this because if you're a Part 141 or 142 grad, they'll go over it with you, but this doesn't apply to us. 6173, military pilots or former military pilot special rules. We don't care about this. That's not something that I want you to know for your check ride. And we don't care about private pilot certificates issued on the basis of a foreign pilot license. Why? Because if this ever is an issue, who are you going to contact? The Flight Standards District Office. That's correct. Don't try to put on this on the weight of your shoulders. You're just simply going to go to the FSDO. If this ever comes up, that's what you're going to do. You're going to go to the FSDO. You're going to call the FSDO, and they're going to handle it. You're not going to do any of this crap. Okay. 6177, special purpose pilot authorization doesn't apply. I mean, we're talking about foreign pilot stuff. Don't try to look at this. We don't need that. And let's see. That's it. That's all for subpart B. And when we meet next, we're going to go subpart C. And this is the game changer. This is actually where stuff gets complicated. Okay. But about 25 minutes we've spent now talking about just really additional aircraft ratings, 6163. But there's more fun to be had in the other stuff that follows, and they're going to be. I'm really trying to keep these under 30 minutes because, the bottom line is you watch the stuff, you listen to the stuff. God, it's so incredibly boring. Maybe I'll try to think of some jokes or something to tell on the next one. That way you can get your comedy on while you're listening. I'm going to do that. I'm going to come up with some jokes that are kind of universally, you're watching this stuff. And I'm probably nothing like nasty unless you request it. Then I'll probably do a video with nasty jokes. Probably not. Because I don't want my ratings to go up. I want to keep this on the DL, on the down low. Keep all this training on the down low. We don't want this training to get out there for other people to start taking advantage of it, right? No, actually, that's what we do want. Anyway, because we want people to grow smarter every day. I wonder if that's trademarked. I probably better not say that. So next time we meet, Subpart C student pilots, and this is going to be some really meat and potato stuff. So get your Wheaties in because you're going to need it on the next video. Thank you so much for listening to me today. I'm Todd Shelnut for CFI Pro, and we'll see you at the airport. Bye-bye.